Um, say we have different loop in JavaScript. We have the for loop, we have the for each, and this for each is this for off and for in here. So while loop, and we have do while loop, which is forgotten loop, something you can use there, but I've never used it before for all the work I've been doing. But I do explain it to students, but these days I don't want to even be explaining it again because I just only explain it, but it's not being used like that. So major even all these loops sef, when you're dealing with array, you always use all the functionality or the methods that the array is giving you to work with them. It's always kind of as scarce there for you to use all these while loop or for loop. If you want to do something outside of something complex, that's where all this one used to comes in. And majorly say when you're dealing something complex, array already have all these methods that you can use to transform the data or to get more insight from it there. But for this off and in, it's kind of a new or something that people don't really used to get at them. So that's why I'm trying to explain it there. And when you're dealing with this for off here, it's this for off is really useful when you are dealing with array. That's the only time I know that it is useful. When you are dealing with array or anything that you can loop over that is closely related to array, anything that looks like array, that's when this for off is really useful. And this one now, you don't need to care about the starting point or the ending point because this one know where the list is starting from and it knows the end. And it's going to give you all the value from the starting to the end. So when you're using this off with array or array like anything that looks like array are there, anytime you use it, you are going to get the value inside that array one by one. And that's what we have on this screen here. So running this code, you see that we are getting the value there. But the problem with this one is that it doesn't have control. You can't just control it that, oh, I only want to take this 30 and 50 here, or I only want it to be taking the one that the index is odd and so forth like that. If you want to do all those things, then you have to use this for. Because with for, you have the control over the index. You can tell it to start from this particular index and it's going to be skipping all these other index that you don't want and so forth like that. By using the for loop in this way, by using for loop, then you are going to have your initialization here, just like the way we used to do it in C there like that. As you can see, you have access to anything you want and you can control where it's going to start from. So this one is starting from 0. If I don't want it to start from 0, I want it to start from index 3. And then again too, I don't want it to be increasing one by one. I want this thing to be increasing by 2 and so forth like that. So I have the control over the way this thing is going to loop through the data when you are using the stuff like that. Well, actually, what is it? So when you are using this for loop, you have the control over how it's going to move. As you can see here, it's going to take whatever I want it to take. But when you are using this one is only useful when you want to loop through the entire array, starting from the beginning all the way to the end. You don't care about the number that is there. You don't need to worry yourself about the starting or the ending. It knows where it's starting from and it knows where it's going to end. And which variable are you now using to receive each one of the value that is going to be giving you? That's the variable here out of this array here. So at the time this call will be changing to each one of the value there like that and saving it. We're going to get the value from the starting all the way to the end. You can't just stop like that, except if you want to use break. But this one is only useful when you want to loop the entire array and do something based on the value that you are getting back. Maybe on the page now, you have like 3 buttons, and those buttons here, you've targeted them from the screen here. For example, here, I can select all my button on the page by using the query selector all there like that, which is going to select all the buttons for me at once. Or let me bring out this is not query selector all like this. So this one now is going to return the data back for you in a form of array. It's not really array, but it's going to return the data back for you in a form of array. As you can see, what is coming back is going to be a node list, and that node list there, it looks like array. So if there's a button on the screen, you see that it will return it, and if there's no button on the screen, it's just going to return empty array. But it's not really array, it's a node list. So that thing is coming back as array, but it's not technically array, but it has some method of array there. And once this thing is console logger there, it will look, can you see? So it looks like array, but it's not array, it is no list. But you can still use this off there. So assuming we have all these buttons on the screen, we can just loop through it and just add our events on each one of them. So for each one of the button that is inside these btns here like this, just as you are giving us the button, start adding event on it and do some action based on whatever the user is clicking there like that. But I don't want to go deeper into, or we don't want to be doing this one. That's why I'm using this simple collection here, just to represent what you can do on the page later on, because most of the stuff you select is not just one item, you always get them as a collection. And since it's a collection that you have inside one variable, you can just loop through it and do whatever the processing you want to do on the value there. And with this off now, it's going to give you the value. But when you are dealing with in doesn't give you value. What it does is to give you index when you are dealing with array, and when you are dealing with objects, what it's going to do is that it's going to give you key. When you are dealing with array, it give you the index, and when you are dealing with objects, it's going to give you the key of that object. So it doesn't give you value, it only give you the key. And you know, array now, the key there is just the index. So that's why I'm calling it index here like that. So when you're dealing with for in there, what you always get back is the index. As you can see, for the array, what you get back is the index. But you are using it with objects, what you get back is a key. And normally, where I've used it before is when I'm dealing with objects and I want to loop through that object, get the key, and out of that key, I will use the current key that is giving me to just access the value on the object there. For example, here, let me just quickly create a simple object, but I won't be talking about object here. So I just have a user like this, and this user is having name, which is going to be raster like this, and it's having level to be 200. So if you use it now with it, what you are going to get back is the key of the object that you have there. As you can see, what we are getting back are the keys. So the name, the level. Then since you know that you are getting key, what you can just do here, pass the object, and out of it, just dynamically access the value that you want for that object there. So which means here now, using this method, then you now be able to have access to the value. So this is how you do it when you are dealing with an object. But there's a better way with modern JavaScript to do something like this. There's a better way. Instead of you using this method, I can do the same thing, just that this one is going to return the data back for me in a form of an array there, which is something I used to use a lot when I'm dealing with objects like that. So I can just convert everything that I have, and on it, just ask for the values of that object. And from there, pass whatever object that you want, and this thing is going to return all the values for you at once. Now, I can see I'm going to get the same thing. And on it now, since I've converted it to array, I can now do some processing based on the array methods that we're going to be talking about. Like, you want to check maybe it contains something or it is not, or you're finding a particular value and so forth like that. So with just one line, I just get all the value instead of using this method here to do the same thing. But this one too is something you can use, and you still have the same kind of results that you are expecting there like that. But for in is useful when you are dealing with objects. For off is useful when you are dealing with array and the array like. If you use the for off with object, you are not going to get what you are expecting there, because we don't use it with it like that. For example, here now, if I change it to from this code now to user like that, and run it, as you can see, what we are getting, it will give you error. So you only use for off with array, then you use for in with object. But for in too will work for array, but it will give you the index, which is useless, because the value is what you need, not index. So, but if you know that you want to use that to access the stuff, it's just waste of time, because there is a better way of doing the stuff there in using array method. So for off is really useful when you are dealing with array, and when you are using for in, it's useful when you are dealing with object. And don't forget, it will only give you the key. Then that key now, you can use it to access whatever value that you want on the object there like that. So when you're dealing with array, this is what you can use there like that. But when you're dealing with array, we have this array destructuring there. So let me talk about the destructuring before talking about the um the methods that we have in array there. So when you're talking about destructuring, this is a way of you extract a value out of your array without creating multiple value to do the stuff. For example, here now, imagine we have this array const scores like this, and we have some scores that we want to display out. So I have like 10, I have this 30, I have um, I have 75, I have this 62, and so forth like that. So let me remove this other one. We just have this little, I don't need all this 100, all this one. Okay. So now, assuming we want to create a variable, but that variable now is going to be based on the value of the first or the index of this array here. So we want to create a variable to hold the first value of this array. We want to create another variable to hold the second value from this array, and we want to have another variable to just have the remaining value from the array. If you want to do this thing without array destructuring there, you are going to write a lot of code to do what I just mentioned here. What did I want to do? I want to have access to the first value from the array. Again too, I want to have another variable to hold the second value. And lastly, I want to have the third variable now. The third variable to hold the other values in the array. So this is what we want to do. So we want to have a variable to hold this first value. We want to have another variable to hold this second value. And we want to have another variable to now hold everything that is left inside the array there. So to do this in a traditional way, what you do, for example, here you are going to create a V1 for the first value. And what are we going to have there? We are going to set it to score at 0 like this. To get the second value, so we are going to create the second variable and we'll set it to the scores at 1. So it's giving us. But now, how do we get the remaining value? This is where our loop needs to come in there, because we need to take the remaining that is left inside the array. And you know this is 0, 1. So we've taken all this one already. So we need to start our loop from 2, 3, 4, 5 all the way to the end. So which means here now, you need to create another array and you start adding the value one by one inside them like that, which is waste of time. So this is where array destructuring here comes in to simplify what we just doing here on separate line in just one line. So instead of us having it like this, what we can do is to use array destructuring there. And how do we do that? To do that is just by creating a variable that you want, and there you have this square bracket, and inside this square bracket here you specify the variable you are creating, and based on the index of the variable here, it's going to take whatever value that we have from here. So from here now, we can have this v1 and v2, and what this thing is saying is that we want to take a value from our array. So we are creating a variable v1, but this v1 is value is going to be the value of the first index because it's the first one on this list. So it's going to take the first value of this array here. So again too, we are creating another variable here which is v2, and that value of this one now, the value of this one is going to be the value at the index where we type it. So which means the way you type it here matters. So since the v1 is coming first, it will go to this variable here, which is this array. It will take the first value at it. So we are creating the variable, but the value of it is going to be whatever the first value of this array that is in front here. So for the second one, it's going to go there again, and it's going to be the second value that is there. If you have the third variable, then it will keep taking whatever the value at the index where you type the variable here like that. So instead of us doing it on this separate line like this, we can just have it on a single line in this way, and we are going to have the same result. But where the power of this thing comes in is that this thing actually supports REST operator. So when you are dealing with the destructuring in array or in objects that we're going to be seeing later on, it actually supports REST like this. So instead of us creating some dummy array down here and start looping through to take the value there, this thing is going to do the same work for us. And what does this thing mean here? What it's going to do is that when these two are done taking their value, then this one is going to take the remaining value that is left. That's how it works. And in this rest now, it must always be the last one. You can't have it here because it's always taking the rest. So all the one that is taking single value are going to come first. Then the one that is going to take the remaining one will always be at the end of the list like this. And what we want to do here with multiple line is what we just have here on a single line by using this rest operator. So which means this rest, or which you can call it anything you want, like that. So for example, I can call it this order, or if I want, I can call this v3. It will always work because you are the one creating the variable. And here now, we can console log out the value that each one of them is having there. And you're going to see that the v1 is taking 10, v2 is going to take 30, and v3 is going to take the remaining stuff that is left there. So if I change this one to v2 now, we see that v2 is just taking the second value, which is this 30. And if it is v3 that we are using here now, then this one is going to return the array of the remaining value that we have in the list there. As you can see, to take the remaining value that is left. So the rest operator can be used in different way, but where you are using it will determine how it works. You can use it for spread, you can use it for rest in the variable parameter, and again too, you can use it for rest in the array destructuring or the object destructuring there, depending on the one you have there like that. So this is how it works. So you have this variable that you are creating on the fly, but the value is coming from whatever you have in the array, the first index like this. But now, what if what we are doing right now, the value is not up to that? So for example here, I have this course again, but right now we only have one, or we have 30, we have 75, and we have 20 like this. So we have three of them like this. And we are creating a variable to represent them. So I have v1, v2, v3, and v4 like this. And in front of it, we set it to score. So if you look at it, we are taking more than what is inside the array there. So if you console log out all this value, you see that v1 is going to have value. So if you console log out the v1, we're going to get the value that we're expecting there, which is going to be 30 as the value. So if it is v2, we are going to get 75 for v2 like this. And if it is v3, we are going to get this our 20. For now, what are we going to get for v4? So v4 now, we are not going to get anything because this one, the v1 has taken the first value, the v2 has taken this, and the v3 has taken the last number. So there is nothing for v4 to pack from the list there. So which means it's going to be undefined. So anytime you pass more than what the array is holding, whatever variable that is not taking anything, what you are going to have there is undefined. I hope you are following. Hope I'm not too fast.
No, sir, not fast.
Yeah, so it's going to give you this stuff there like that. But what if I do something like this? But what if I set the pivot to 3 like this? As you can see, that's what it's going to use. So which means when you are creating a variable using this destruction here, you can actually set the default value. And what this means is that if this stuff is not seeing any, or any of the variable here is not seeing any value to take, whatever default value that you set there, that's what it's going to use. So for this one, I don't really use it with array. Where I normally use it is with objects, because that object is something, the key might not be available in that object. So when it is not available, just use the default value for it. But if it is available, take the value. And that's what is happening with this array too here, like that. So Any one of them that is not seeing any value to take, it's going to use whatever default value that you set. But if there is no default value, it will be undefined because that variable will not have any value. But now, once you set, maybe you add to the list, or this array is actually having all the necessary value that needs to be there. And as you can see, it's going to pick the value and just omit your default because this is default value. If it is not seeing anything, it will use the default. But if it's seeing the value, then it will pick whatever that is there like that. And that's what we normally do with this use state, or this use state here. So this function use state is actually returning back array. And what we are doing there is that we are now destructuring the array to pick the state, assuming this use state now is this our score. What it's going to do is that assuming this use state is returning score, let me create the function. So let me create the function down here. So we are creating a function use state like this. And this function is not doing anything serious. What it's just doing is that it's returning back array or tuple of value like this. We normally call it tuple because what it's just going to return is 0 and 1. So this function use state now, we are calling it here. So what is going to happen is that we are destructuring the value that is coming back because we know that the value is sending is just array of value. So what we are saying here, this state now, what is going to happen is that the state that is here is going to take the first value, then this setter here is going to take the second value. But you know, in React, what this thing is actually returning is that the data that you want, and the second one is returning is another function that you can use to update the stuff. But behind the scene, it's just using this array destructuring there. So this use state is returning back array. But instead of you doing, because normally what you are supposed to be doing there, you are going to have the maybe x like this is going to be use state like this. So when you want to use the first value, what you now do is x at 0 to get the first value, then x at 1 to get the whatever function you need to call, and you cannot do it like this in React. But instead of you doing it like this every time, what you can just do, you destructure whatever the state is giving you back, and you use whatever you have there, your variable you have here, as the value, then whatever variable you have there as the function. Like, don't forget, you can assign function to a variable, and that variable now you just call it as if you are calling normal function instead of doing it like this, or instead of you going to another line to start saying that state like this, and again on another line you give this one function like this. So instead of you doing these 3 steps, you just have it on one line like the way it is here. So this one will work, and this one too will work, but both of them are doing the same thing. And this one is more simple and readable compared to what we have there, but they are all doing the same thing. Before I read the structure in there in JavaScript, this is how you have to do it. But now that we have it, you don't need to start, going to different line to just extract what you need from the array. You can do it on one line, declare the variable or create the variable, then put the array or whatever function that is returning array in front there, and it's going to set or update each one of them like that. And here now, we can quickly console log our states. So we can console log our states, state, not seats. So console log our states, and we should have, as you can see, I'm having 0. But why am I having 0 there? Is because the function are here. The first one is returning 0, the second one is returning 1. So if I console log out the setter too, you see it that it's going to take the second value because that's what the function is returning. It's returning this tuple like this, and this tuple now we are destructuring it by taking the first one into this variable, then the second one into this second variable here, and I can do anything I want with them. So instead of using this state, I can use a setter, and we're going to get 1 or whatever the value that you are returning from this your use state. But this is what is just going on behind the scene of use states in React there. So the function is returning a variable here or the value, and for the second one is returning the function to update whatever stuff that they are doing behind the scene. But what is just returning behind the scene is this: returning an array that contains 2 values, and you are destructuring it by using this state and the setter to update that particular state. And you can call them anything. You can call this one X, you can call this one Y. React doesn't care. you are the one creating the variable. But it's just by convention, you only see that the variable will be here, and you now see something like set variable. For example, here you are going to have the count, and here you are going to have the set count. React doesn't care about this thing. It's not a must that you do it like this. It's just that it's more readable. When you are using it later on, you have a lot of use state. You know that, oh, this one now is to set the count, this one is to set the profile, this one is to set their first name, and so forth like that. So that's the reason why this pattern is there. But the major thing here is that you are destructuring the data that is coming back, which is the array. And this thing is returning two things for you inside the array. The first one is the state, and the second one is whatever you are going to use to update the state. That lets for you to name them anything that you want there like that. So array destructuring is really useful, and there anytime you know that whatever this your function or the array, you just want to quickly extract something out of it, you can just destructure it instead of just start mentioning the index on a different line there like that. So structuring is really important there like that. So here now we need just can move to all the methods that we have in the array, the one that are common and the one that is crazy there. Those are the one I'm going to explain. We have some of them that are cheap, so that you have been using some of them already, like find, Peter, and all those things. So I will just go over all those one briefly and move into this, like starting with reduce, the splice. You have been using split already, so or slice. All those one they are simple stuff that you go. But the one that is used to be crazy among them is that reduce, and it's really powerful. And again, too, you can combine some of them together to really transform your data into a separate form of data, which is something you always do a lot in React there. When you have a list of data that is coming from the API, but you need to transform it into something that is going to render a component out there. But there's some processing you need to do first before you do some stuff like the map. So, of course, you need to remove what you don't want before you now process the one that you need there, and so forth like that. For example, we have a list of scores. Why are you giving me this? I don't want this random or this static number that just follow each other like this. So let me generate some numbers that doesn't follow each other. Oh yeah, what I can just do is to use my, but don't let me do it right now. I will do the stuff later. So I have 70, 80, 56, 78, 92, 45. Complete now. This AI is 67, 34, 34,
Sorry,
51,
I
89. What did you say?
said it's paid, right?
Yes, you said?
I said the auto and this completion is paid.
No, 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 no. I'm using the this is
Eh,
not a Codium.
okay. Subs-
It's not like this Codium. Let me type it. Codium. Yeah, yeah. Just type Codium to or your extension and it's going to bring it out. So like that.
Thank you,
So
sir.
this is Codium. But you need to sign in with your email first for it. So um yeah, so I have this some random value. Let me add more, like some value that are not up to the processing we are going to be doing later on. 45, 23, 10, 20, 56, 49, 46, 78, 41, 40, 70, 56, 81, 21, 90, 93, 54, 23, and so forth like this. I just want to add some random number that I don't even know what is going on there, but we want to process the stuff. So let me just console log it out so that you can see some of the array methods that we have there, because we have a lot of them. And anytime you console log any array, it's going to tell you everything under this prototype here. So these are methods that you can use on your array. So we have this at, We have this concat. I don't really use this one because I have a simple way of doing the same thing that this one is going to do, but I will explain it. This one is just to add to your array here. So you have another set of array and you want to join it with whatever you have before. You can use this concat, but that's a simple way of doing the stuff. We have these entries. These are the ones that are useful. So we have this every. I always use it a lot. If you want to use fill, I normally use this one too. Anytime I'm this one, I normally use it when I'm creating my array and I'm generating it on the fly, and I want to fill it with some dummy data there, like that. So that's what I used to use. So filter, find, find index, find last index, and a lot of them like that. So for each, which is really useful too, include, join. So let me list out the one that we are going to be talking about it. So this art is just cheap, there like that. So the concat, you can use this one too to just join array together. So the one, so we have these entries, we have this every, like this. We have some, because both of them are closely related to each other. I used to use them a lot when you're dealing with Boolean, or and again too, they are closely related to this filter. But the way both the three of them are doing the same thing, but the data they are returning is what is different. So the three of them are doing the same thing, but the data they are returning is what is different. Like that. So we have the find, the same thing too. This one is close to filter, like that. So that the data is returning. So we have the find index, which in case you need the index of the data you are looking for, not the data itself, you can use this one. Have this find last, like that, because of the way find work. So let me move it close to find. But it's like find, the difference is just what they are returning. So we have the find last, the same thing here too. So find last index, like that, in case you are looking for the index of the data. So we have flat, which is not really useful because that one is when you are dealing with a nested array and you want to convert everything to just a single array there. So that's where flat. So we have the includes, which is really important. You always use this one a lot. So in case this index, if you need the index too, you can use this one, like that, or you can use this last uh index of, like that. This one too. Both of them are closely related to each other, but what they are returning is what. So join too, which is really useful in case you want to convert your array to string, like that. So we have the keys. This one too is really useful. We have values. It's really useful, like that. The most used array method, it is map, like that. The most abused method here, because or the React there, it's always been abused in React a lot, like that, or it's always been used a lot. Like 90% when you're working with array, what you only see is map, 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 map. But there are some other one here that are really useful apart from map there. Most of this reduce is really crazy, but it can do a lot of complex stuff for you, like that. So we have this reduce right. I've never used this one before, but it's still doing the same thing as reduce. The difference between them is that it's not doing it from the right of the array instead of doing it from the left side. But most of the data I always work with, they are always coming from the left. So like that. The sorts, I don't really use it like that, but something that you can use. So we have reverse too, in case you need to reverse your list. We have splice. This one too is really useful, like that. You have slice, because both of them, the name sounds the same, but they are not the. So P is different there. So splice and slice, they are not the same thing. Because they are doing something else. So we have shifts, which I don't really use, but it's there that you can use there. And again, too, we have the other one which is on shift, like this. I don't know why they name it in this way, because the name is kind of doing the opposite of what this stuff is actually doing there. I like that. We have this pop, which is common anytime you need to remove something from the end of the array, or anytime you need to add something to the end of the array there, like that. And we have a lot of other things, but these are the common one that you are going to work with. Some of them, like this week now, you can't just, I don't think it's available on all the browser for now. And what you always do is to use something that is available on all the browser, because anything you want to use when you are working, when you are dealing with framework, most of the time you don't need to worry yourself about whether this thing will work on all the browser or not, because all this framework they use something known as polyfill. So almost all these framework they use something known as polyfill. And what does this polyfill? This is a way, this polyfill is just some JavaScript that adds some functionality that you have on modern browser that is not on the old browser. So polyfill is just a script that add all the features that you're using on a modern browser on the old browser that they don't have all these features. Because all these array feature that you're seeing here, if you try it on some browser, all this old browser, you see that the thing will not work. But when you're dealing with framework, they already add this polyfill into the stuff there that will make sure that most of all the modern JavaScript code you are using, it's always available, even whether you are using browser that is old. And that's why when you go to some framework, you always see that they mention the browser they are supporting there, or the list of the version of the browser that they are supporting. Because most of the time, you don't need to worry yourself about that, because they always support a lot of, like, let's just say 90% of the browser that the user are going to use, they are supporting it already, because all the other things that are not available directly on those browser, the polyfill is going to cover them to make sure that it works. Not like the olden days that when you want to build site before, maybe around that 2013, 2010, when you want to build a site, you have to cater for different browser. So the way things will work on the Internet Explorer, that's not the same thing is going to work on Chrome or Firefox. So you have to do different stuff based on the browser that the user is using. So you have to keep checking. So if this thing available, use it. If it's not available, then do the other stuff. But instead of you doing that, we have this polyfill that cover up for all these things there. So it will just, that's the name, it will fill whatever the gap in between the modern browser JavaScript and the old browser that doesn't have all this functionality like that. So let's start with some of them here. The cheapest one is this art, which is really useful when you want to take something in the array there like that. For example, here I want to take the first item in the array. So what you can use is just to use the index by passing this 0 here, and you use it, and you see that we are going to have 70. So it's giving us the first value. But what if you want to take the last value from the array? Using this index now, you have to use the old method that we normally do. Because here now, you cannot access from the back. Using this, you can't just use negative this thing there like that. Can you see what is returning back? Undefined. So with this method, you cannot access from the back of the array. But sometimes you want to take the last item in the list. So you want to take the last item. How do you take the last item? The way you do it is by getting the index, or by getting the length of the array that is there. Then you remove -1. This is what is always going to give you the last index. So whatever the length, remove 1. Then now use it to access the last item on the list. And as you can see here, we are going to have the last item there, which is this 23. But that's the last item. But instead of you using this method, array now come with this art that you can actually use to have access to the index. But this one support negative index. So you don't even need to start using the length. Just use negative index to start from the back, instead of just using that stuff to start getting from the back there. So we can use art. This one to work the same way. If you pass 0 to give you the first item in the array there, if you pass 1, you know that it's going to give you the second item. But this one supports negative index like that. So if you pass -1 in the list there, we should kind of have the last item, as you can see here. So I don't need to start. This is how you do it in a normal JavaScript when you are not using art. So when you're using this square bracket to have access to the index, you can't use negative index with it. It doesn't know what is negative index because it's old JavaScript stuff. But in the recent JavaScript here, with the addition of this art, you can actually pick from the end instead of picking from the start. Positive will be giving you from the start, and negative will be giving you from the end. If I want to access the second to the last, I just need to use -2, which is going to give me this 54 from the list there like that. But if you want to do it with the old way, this is how it's going to be. So instead of 1 now, it's going to be -2, because that's how you get from the back there. You have to get the length first. Then you now minus whatever you want. But instead of you adding this one to the list, just use the at and pass the negative index directly, and it will still do the same thing for you. So if I save this one now, we are going to get the same results for the two of them. But most of the time, I always use this because of new browser, whatever stuff. But when you are dealing with framework, you don't need to care about that. With this at, it will always work too on some of these old browser. But you yourself, if you are not sure, there is a site that is known as Can I Use. So that site, you can go there to check whether whatever you are using is actually being supported on all the browser or not. It's going to tell you different browser, the browser that support it. Or you can just go to MDN document directly. Anything you are using, they will tell you the browser that is supporting the stuff like that. So MDN, which is a Mozilla doc, anything you are looking for about HTML, JavaScript, CSS, this is where all the documentation are there like that. So which is based on the Mozilla there like that. So if I use the art here like that, just search for the stuff. As you can see, array prototype art. So once you click on it and you scroll down, it will tell you the browser that is supporting or the browser where you can use the stuff. Anyone of them that turn red, you know that you shouldn't, as you can see now. So it is widely supported by all the browser, and they are telling you the version that is being supported here. So it's supported in Deno, the Node.js, if you're dealing with backend later on, there like that. But for Chrome, so any Chrome from here upward, it's supported. Any Edge from here upward, any Firefox from here upward. But if you use anything less than this, you know that it will not support. But this one too is not giving the full gist. There's another site that actually tell you the amount of browsers that supported this thing. So it will can I use, let me see. So can I use like this, and you mention whatever functionality that you want to use in JavaScript there, and it will tell you whether it is available or not like that. So this is the site. So once you go there, you can check anything from CSS, HTML, or JavaScript to know whether that thing is available or not. So yeah, I just want to look for art like that. So let it load. And once the thing is load like that, where is it? So as you can see, it will tell you different browser, but what you actually need here is this percentage here. Once the percentage already enter 80%, just forget it. You can use the stuff. But if there is a new shiny stuff and you come here and you type it and it's not up to around that 80 or 70%, just know that you should find another method of solving that particular problem. It means if your user are using some kind of an old browser, they will not be able to experience whatever they need to experience there like that. But most of the time, since you are going to be dealing with framework, you are not using all these things directly from scratch yourself, or you are not creating the page, or you are not creating the site or the application directly yourself. Most of all these framework, they've already had the polyfill, which is the one that cover up in case this thing is not available on the browser that is really old there. So the polyfill will kick in and it will do some necessary stuff it needs to do because they are using bundler, and the thing will do some necessary stuff it needs to do behind the scene there like that. So you can use this or use the old method that we have there. So this other one that we have, which I'll normally use too, this one is really useful when you need to get the index and the value there like that. So that's where this one is really useful. But I normally use this one when I'm dealing with object like that. That's where I know that it's more useful because I don't need the index when I'm dealing with array most of the time. What I need is the value. But if you need the index too, along with the value, maybe as you're getting the value, you want to be knowing the index where the value is coming from, like that. You can use this one to get the stuff. So yeah, what we can just do is to do our scores like that and just do entries like this. But I've never used it before with array. What I normally do is to use it with objects like that. As you can see, the way we work with array, it's kind of crazy because what is returning here is iterator. And what is iterator here? Iterator is just this class. We've not talked about class, we not talk about objects, so I will skip this one for now. But once we get to the stuff, you'll be able to see, as you can see, it has something known as next, and this is what is going to give you the next value that is inside it. And the more you call the next, the more it's going to be giving you the value that is inside it, and so forth like that. But for now, We don't care about this one because it always work with object like that. As you can see, it will give you the details like the value that you need. So the value, as you can see, it contain the index and the actual value. But done here is telling you that there is some other next you can call. So after this next, if I want, I can call another next again on that entries, and it will giving me the next value like that. But it's not that really useful with array because you have to do loop. You have to loop over the stuff before it works, which you can use your for that we talked about that time. So we can use our for this in there. So for let's I of whatever stuff that is here, and from there you can just console log our I like that. So that's why I don't use it with array, because of some extra work you need to be doing with it like that, as you can see. So that's when you are now going to get the value. So when you do for off now, so entries is going to be giving you one by one. So this is the first one, which is giving you the index and the value. That's entries. Entries always giving you the index and value. But normally I use it with object because that one I don't need to start doing all this for off. I will get the data that I want directly. But with this array now, you have to start doing this. You have to loop over what is giving you. You don't want to loop over it, you have to start calling next yourself to get the data. But you have to use this for off. This for off here now, it knows what to do with these entries, and it's going to extract out the details for you automatically there like that. As you can see, we are getting index and we're getting the value that we have there, starting from index 0 all the way to the last index there like that. So these entries will give you both the value and the index at the same time, but it's not that really useful with array. It's only useful when you are dealing with objects. Objects will have it, but that's the one I normally use when you are dealing with object. But this one here, this one too is very like it's really useful when you are working with array there. And where I normally use this thing is to check whether all the value that I have is following a particular condition. So this every, sum, filter, find last, find index, all this one dey require something known as callback. Anytime you are using any one of them, dey require something known as callback. And what is callback? Callback is just a function that you are passing to another function as parameter. You know, you can pass argument to your function. So when you are now using function as argument to another function, that's when that function is called callback. So this every, the sum, the filter, the find last, map, and all of them, they expect a callback. And the callback, which is the function that you are going to pass into it, is going to receive three things. Is going to receive the item, the current item. So for example, here now, we're going to have so const, but it's going to return this one will either return true or false. That's what you only get back. So for this every, what you get back is either true or false. So which means the result of this one is always boolean. As you can see here, the result is always boolean. It's just a single stuff is returning back, and what is going to return back will either be true or false. And this is how it works here. As you can see, so when you are using every, it's expecting a function from you, and that function is expecting from you is going to receive three things. The first thing is going to receive is the current value that the every is giving you, because it will look through all the value that you have in your list there, and it will keep giving you each one of them at a time. So the first parameter to this your function is going to be the value that is given you at a particular time. So the first time is going to be 70. The second time is going to be 80. The third time is going to be 56, and so forth like that. So the first thing is you only receive is the value that is given you at a particular time. If you need the index, that's the next thing is going to pass to you. And lastly, it will always send the entire array, which is this call. Whatever you have here before the dots, that's what this array will always represent in case you need it, which I don't really use it like that because you have access to it already here. So why do you need to receive it, or why do you need to still be doing it here? If I need it, I can just call this call directly inside this my function. But if you don't want to do it like that, you can still receive it through this side here. But majorly, most of the time, what you always use is this value and the index of that value in case you need the index. For example, here now, I always want to check if the value that we have here, there are people that score above 49 here. So whatever value that we have here, we really want to check if all this value here, they are above 49. So if it is above 49, then it's going to, no, this is wrong. This one should be a return because I'm not using arrow function, but normally what you always use is arrow function because it's more shorter compared to what I'm using here. So what we are doing here is that for every value that we have here, they must be greater than 49. So what this one is going to do is that it will either return true or false based on whether everything here is satisfying this condition. If all the value here satisfy the condition, you get true. But if one of them, if just one of them did not satisfy condition, you get false. So which means here now the result we are going to get back here is going to be false because none of them is satisfying the condition here. As you can see, we are getting back false. Why are we getting back false? Because I know that here I actually have some value that kind of are less than 49. So and but every it will check whether all the value inside that your array satisfy the condition. If it is, allow it to go. If it is not, then don't allow it to go at all. And I normally use this in a lot anytime I'm dealing with different loading. This is where I normally use, this is one of the places I normally use it. On the page, I have different loading states that I'm tracking of. But I want to know whether all of them is still loading or not. See whether all of them, not just one of them. I want to have a variable that hold the information about the loading state of all the loading state that I have on that page, whether all of them is still loading. So here I have maybe array of loading like this. So array of loadings, and here for the first one maybe it's loading, the second one too is loading like this, and the third one is not loading. Maybe that one has done loading the data because on the single page I can have different places that are calling different API, and I need to keep tracking their loading state because they are different. They are calling separate API. The first API might come first, and the second one will still be loading. So I can't use one loading for all of them. So I have to use different loading. But I still want to show a global stuff at the top that is rolling there. But that one will always be there as long all this stuff is still loading, if you want to do it like that. But majorly, the one that will work best for what I want to do here is sum. But here, I can actually check whether all this thing is still loading, whether everything is still loading. And what we can do here is just to check whether loadings, but I don't like this function is using. So let me remove all this thing that this AI is generating. So every like this. So I have my arrow function instead of using normal function. Receive the value, which is going to be the loading. And what I just want to do here is to just return the value because I know that what is there is boolean. But if it's not boolean that is there and you want to convert it to boolean, you can actually negate it 2 times. So what this one is saying is that whatever that is here, even if it's not boolean, it's going to convert it to boolean there. For example, here if I do not zero, as you can see, it will be not zero. It has converted that zero to boolean, but I still want it to return the normal boolean value for this zero. So one way of doing it is by just what I did before, by just saying boolean like this, and you are going to pass the value in this way, and it's going to give me whatever the value for the boolean. But instead of me typing boolean directly, I can use this method too, and it's still going to do the same thing. And that's what I'm doing here, like that. So but I know that all these things they are boolean already, so I don't even need to be putting the stuff there like that. And this one is going to hold whatever it is. So this one will tell me whether everything is still loading or not. So if everything is still loading, you still want to do something somewhere. But if everything is not loading, it means one of them has already resolved. So you can allow the user to carry out some operation or not, like that. And if I console log out this one, we are going to have false because all of them are not loading. We have one of them that is not loading here. And once this thing is saved, you see that this thing is going to return false for us. But if everything is loading, you see that we are going to get true for the second one because the only time it's going to return true, what's that? How am I getting false? Oh, I'm console log out false. Because what I'm supposed to get is true. So let me console log out the correct stuff. And here, as you can see, we are getting true. So for the every, whatever condition you pass to it, all of them must satisfy that condition. That's every. But if you only want one of them to satisfy the condition, that's where sum comes in. So both of them are the same, but the difference between them is that sum is only looking for one of them that satisfy the condition. But for the every, all of them must satisfy the condition that you pass into that your um function there. So whatever callback you pass into them, they will always receive the value, they will receive the index, and they will receive the array that's called that sum or whatever the array method that you're dealing with. But I don't use the last one. Most of the time, I already have access to the array, so I don't need to start. So here now we can just say score. We only want to check if there is someone that actually score above 80. So here we want to check if there's anyone that score above 80. So here receive the value like this, and I want to check if value is greater or equal to 80 like this. So this one, it will only check for any one of them that satisfy the condition, and if there is anyone there, then it will just return true if one of them satisfy the condition. But if none of them satisfy the condition, then we are going to have false there because nobody score above 80. But we know that the value that we have there is actually, we have some of them that are above 80 there, and we are going to have true because in our list we have a value that is actually greater than 80 or equals to 80. So this is 80 here. We have 92, so which means one of them is already, this one is satisfying already, and since this one has satisfied the stuff, you say that that's what is going to return, is going to return true for us. But if whatever condition you have here, none of them is satisfying that condition, that's when it's going to return false there like this. And I think what is time? It is yeah. Oh, okay. I want this thing to enter 1 hour first before we'll call it, because I don't want it to be more than an hour. I hope you are still there.
Yes, sir.
All right. So the other one we have here is this filter. I don't need to explain it. I think you've been using it, right? You've been using this filter already, so I don't even need to
Yes.
explain myself there like that. So for the find too, I know you have been using this one too, but this one is really
Yes,
useful
I
when
believe.
you are looking for a value. But this find last is just like this one, but the difference between them is that look at it here. Assuming you have, look at this, we have 70 here, and we now have another 70 here. So when you use find, the 70 is going to return is this one here. It's not going to return. Can you see that we still have other 70 in the list? We still have
Yes.
other 70 on the list. But what if it's the last one that you want? You don't need the first one, or you don't need the second one that it's on the list there. You need the last one that is there. So that's where this find last comes in. So when you just want to find the first one that is in the list, find is what we use, which is a common one. But if you know that you want to take the last one that is inside that your list there, then you can use find last. For this one, instead of finding the item, or instead of returning the item back, what is going to return the index that it's finding that in whatever items you are looking for. For example, here now, I can just console log out the stuff. So we have the scores, then find index. So which index can we find 70 there? So find the index. So this one too is going to return the value like this. And we want to find the index where this thing is returning true. So where is it returning true? There. So I'm looking for where the value is equals to 70 like this. So anywhere this thing is running true, we want to look for the index of that particular place there like that. So instead of returning the value, it's going to return the index. Why my bracket not complete? Let me complete my brackets. Let me expand this one here. Oh shit. I have more room. So we have this find index to just return index. If it is the index you are looking for, this is what you use, but you are using, as you can see, it's telling you that we can find 70 on index 0, because as you can see here, I have 70 on that index. But what if I'm looking for maybe 90 here? So I want to look at the index that we can find this 90 there like that. And if there's anything like that, as you can see, the 90, we have it on this index. So which means from my array now, if I need to have access to that 90, I can just use this course like this 27. So this is where I'm going to get the value. So if you need the value, instead of finding index, we can use find. But if you don't need the value, what you need is the index. Because at some time, what you are doing on the page, you only want to know the index of where that value is located there. You don't really care about the value, but you want the index of where it's coming from, and you want to process something based on that index, then you can use find index. But if it is the value you need, use the find directly like that. And this one too, it have this find last like this, which means you can find the stuff from the end of the stuff like that. So instead of it to start counting from the front, it will always get the last one for you there like that. So this is just what this one is there. And again too, this one is really really useful when you are this one is most like useful when you are dealing with string to quickly check whether that particular value is in the list or not. So this one return true or false are there. Or this one too, it work like you are using this sum or every like that. That's the way it works. But here, you can use it to just check a particular value that you want to supply to it there. For example, here, I have a list of items, or I have a user. I have 3 users that can log into the system. So I have 3 set of users that can log into the system. So I have admin like this. I have students, and I have staff. So the person that logs in, you are going to have access to their details. So this is logged in user like this, and you are going to have whatever they are logged in. So from there, this person can either be admin, it can be student, or it can be staff, or it can even be any other text that is there. But on the page, there are some stuff that admin cannot, there are some stuff that student cannot see. There are some stuff too that staff cannot see. And again, that B too, there are some stuff too that admin cannot see. So you need to decide which screen that you want to show, because you're using the same dashboard for all of them. But the details you are showing is depending on whether the person that logs in is admin or student or staff or even any other type of user that can log into the system. And based on that, you want to check whether the person that logs in is part of what you're actually expecting, or people that can actually have access to that data or not. And we can use the include. So here now I can check whether the list that I have, which is this one, or it's something I can even save in a variable to be more readable. So we have these permissions like this, and this is going to be this array. So I want to check if permission now it's include this whatever stuff that I'm looking for. And what am I looking for? I'm looking for this login user. And this one will either return true or false. And if you look at this one now, it looks as if we are dealing with this every or something like that. But this one is more compact, when you don't even need to pass a function to do some processing before it will do the checking. This one you already know that it's just a normal string. It will just compare them one by one and check whether it is part of the list. So it will compare this your text with this, compare with this, compare with this, and if it is here, then it will return true. If it is not, then it will return false back to whoever is calling this stuff. And based on this, you can decide whether to show that UI or not to the person that log in. And as you can see, this one is not included in the list. But now if I use maybe like student here, you see that it's going to show the stuff. And I normally use all these things most of the time there like that. For example, here, let me open one of my this thing that I'm working on. A lot of array functionality, you always use them like that. What did I even use? Let me see. Let me open a project that I know I'm using all this in. This is my work that I use. This one is TS. We are going to talk about TS. I think maybe in week 3 or so. They're like that. For now, let's deal with JavaScript first. Let me stop the video.